Hello, everyone, and welcome to How to Buy Properties No Matter Your Financial Situation. I hope everyone is ready to learn about buying with zero money down using seller financing. I am Sherry Lynn Milsom, and I am your host today. I've been a professional investor since 2006, and it didn't take long to exhaust my capital. I know a lot of you will know what that feels like. You want to buy more properties, and you just don't have the money to do it. So I turned to creative investing strategies, and I've been teaching those since 2010. And I love helping sellers in a bind and making money while doing it. So it's a great way to progress your real estate investing career. So you've got no money down, you've got no mortgage. That is no problem at all. I haven't applied for a mortgage since the spring of 2016, and I've bought multiple properties with almost zero down payment. There are no need for money partners, for investors, for RSP loans, or joint ventures. You can do it all on your own because you don't need their money. And we're creating win-win situations here. I get to add the property to my portfolio. The return on investment can be nearly infinite if I'm putting little to no money down. And there are multiple strategies for holding the property and later exiting the property. And of course, no need to qualify for a mortgage. That mortgage wall hits everybody. And it is so great to just be able to go in and buy a property without even having to talk to a bank. And then the seller gets to unload the property with no hassles and no fees. They unload that burden. There's no realtor's commissions. There's no fees for breaking the mortgage. And the legal fees, well, that's usually covered on our side. So they don't have that either. We close whenever the seller wants. So if they need a little bit of time to find their next place, that's fine. We can set it up however they need it to be. And it saves the seller's credit and their sanity. If people are in a bind, it can really be draining and cause a lot of stress. So it's great to be able to help them out. Where and when does this work? Anywhere where there's a solid economy, preferably really diversified. I'm based in Edmonton, Alberta, which is a really well-diversified economy. And it's got a huge oil and gas base to it and all of the support industries, but there's also all kinds of nanotechnology and all sorts of fun stuff. So that's a great example of a well-diversified economy, not a one-horse town. And it works in virtually any market. You can be in a rising market, a flat market, or even a falling market. There are different tweaks to the strategy, of course, for each different market. So what the heck am I talking about? We're talking about agreement for sale, which is how we buy properties with seller financing. And it constitutes the terms and conditions of sale of a property by the seller to the buyer. These terms and conditions include the amount at which it is to be sold and the future date of full payment. So that's the key. We are starting the sale transaction now, but it doesn't complete until some future date when we pay out the seller's financing that we've arranged with them and title transfers. So it is a way to purchase a property using seller financing. The mortgage, if there is one, stays in the seller's name and we work with that mortgage. And the buyer gets beneficial ownership, but not title. Title stays with whoever's on the mortgage. But beneficial ownership means operational control. So we can do whatever we want with that property. We can renovate it. We can sell it right away. We can rent it out, whatever we want to do. How we work it is with a regular purchase contract with an agreement for sale or AFS clause explaining how the sale will proceed and a financing schedule that talks all about the arrangement for financing that we've arranged with the seller. So why use it? My favorite thing, of course, is no mortgage qualification. I love that so much. Little to no down payment, favorite thing number two. Between those two things, you can buy properties, unlimited properties. And we're always working with motivated sellers. So we're getting good terms and a good price and we're facilitating the seller's exit. Again, always creating that win-win. So how it works is you find your distressed seller, and distressed seller is a kind of a loose term. It's not always, oh gosh, we're facing bankruptcy tomorrow. So there are all kinds of reasons why somebody would not want to sell the conventional way. Excuse me. So yes, some people are facing bankruptcy or foreclosure. Personally, I don't work with people, with sellers who are already in the process of bankruptcy, but if they're facing it, you know, they know it's coming, then we can still make something work. If they're just in arrears, but they know they're in a hole they can't get out of, now is the time for them to escape that debt before it starts affecting their credit. Divorce is a very common reason, because now you had one big household, now all of a sudden you've got a second household, and a lot of people can't afford the house and the rental, and they've got to downsize. People may be moving to another province or country, and it could even be a quick move where they just need it gone, and they don't want to own a property from some other province or country. Fixer-upper is a great one, because there are a lot of properties out there where the seller can't, where the property won't sell well because it really needs so much work. So that's a really small buyer pool. So it's great for fix and flip type people to get into buying this way. And estate sales, sometimes it's just so emotional. People just don't want to deal with anything, and they'd rather just have it gone. In fact, with all of these, that's the bottom line, is the seller just wants it gone. And hoarders. It's hard to show a property if there's a hoarder living in there. So whether it's an owner-occupier or a rental, that's a great way to get the property sold without having to prepare for MLS showings. So what we do is we get the details on the property, including all the mortgage details and what the seller needs. That's a really important thing to know. So why they're selling, when they are hoping to move, all the details to create that win-win. And then we determine the maximum sale price based on those details. How the numbers will work is specifically what I'm referring to, plus what the market is doing. Because we have to take into consideration, is that market falling or rising? Price. Sellers will often want the full market value without any deductions. Well, it just doesn't work that way. There are always costs or sacrifices when you're selling a property. You never get full market value. So what we do is we take the equivalent of realtors' fees, mortgage penalties, and any major repairs, and we deduct that off what our maximum price will be. And that is how we calculate the absolute maximum price. Then we meet the seller at the property, now that we know that the numbers could work, and we assess the true condition of the property, because right now we've only been dealing on the phone and we haven't seen, oh yeah, the property's in great shape, or oh, it's, you know, could use a little love. We haven't seen all of that yet. So now we assess the condition, adjust our numbers accordingly, and make the offer. And when we make the offer, it's a regular purchase agreement again, and then that financing schedule that has all the details, whether there's an underlying mortgage or not, that gets put in there. And then all of the agreements for how any additional seller's equity, the money still remaining in the property, how that's going to be paid out, if some's going to be today, or if it's all going to be down the road. All of those details are outlined in the financing schedule. Then we send that offer, the signed offer and the financing schedule, to the buyer's lawyer, and the lawyer will help to draft the agreement for sale document. Now that's kind of like a mortgage document between the buyer and seller, representing that seller financing. Conventionally, when you go to sign for a property, you sign a mortgage document. In this case, no mortgage document, but you have the AFS, which is kind of the same thing. Payments, mortgage, taxes, insurance, utilities will then all be transferred into the buyer's name. And now the seller is free to move on with his or her life and has escaped that burden of debt and that whole goal of, I just want it gone. And I've heard that phrase so many times, but that whole goal of, I just want it gone is now complete. It's good to go. So the numbers are critical. Just want to make sure. Yes, I am. Okay. The numbers are critical. Just because you can buy a property with 0 down doesn't mean you should buy a property with 0 down. And your mortgage, your taxes, your insurance, which is PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, should be ideally less than the rent you feel that you can achieve on the property. If not, then you should get a discount on that property because you're going to be out of pocket every month, or pay less in down payment. And the cool thing about that is, here's an example. If your monthly cash flow is $200 in the negative, so you're subsidizing $200 out of your pocket to keep this property going, if you bought the property with 0 down instead of 40 or 60 or 80,000 down, that $200 a month is kind of like a little tiny down payment that you're paying. So you're paying a $200 a month installment to down payment instead of the 40,000 or 80,000 up front. Because usually when, I mean, we're not talking high interest mortgages here. We don't want to take over financing on those. So usually when the payment is high, it's because that property owner has signed into I can't remember the word, accelerated mortgage, where the mortgage principal gets paid down faster. So that extra money out of your pocket is going towards principal. And if you got an additional discount off the property because of that, then that's even better. Paying less than full market value is your cushion against market fluctuations and vacancy. Even if the market is rising right now where you are, remember, you're not getting title, you're not having it all transfer into your name right now. That's going to happen 2 years down the road, for example. So that value has to be supported 2 years down the road when you either refinance or sell the property and the agreement for sale concludes. So getting it for a bit of a discount is a bit of a cushion for you against those fluctuations. And monthly payments being less than the potential rent mean the property is self-sustaining. So you can then buy unlimited properties, especially if you're able to get them for 0 down. There are multiple hold and exit strategies. You can do a regular rental and then later either refinance or sell the property. You can do a fix and flip, and the agreement for sale is a fantastic way to get into a fix and flip, because instead of doing the expensive bridge or renovation financing, you're just walking into regular financing, and instead of putting down a huge down payment, you've got a lot of that money still sitting there to fund the renovation. Then once it's done, you can sell it and cash out the original seller. Or you can refinance and then do a rent or rent to own. You can sell immediately. If you're getting enough of a discount on a property, then, and I've done this before, where the people just need out now, it's just got to go, and they had enough of a discount on the property that I could put it on the MLS, sell it even with the commission, and still make a quick little profit. And well, it wasn't even that little. It was pretty nice. So the difference is that they need it out today, whereas I could wait and have it vacant and pay money on a vacant property for 2 or 3 or 4 months, and I'd still be able to make money on it. That wasn't their situation. So that wasn't going to work for them. You can assign the contract. I'm really careful about assignments because, first of all, if I'm assigning a property, or a contract, I want to know that that person who's taking over the contract is qualified and able to create that win-win and successfully conclude the transaction, because those sellers came to me to buy the property. So I want to make sure that they're well taken care of. The other thing with assigning, I personally will not get a property under contract unless it's one that I'm willing and able to close on myself. That way you're not running around scrambling to find somebody to assign it to when it's not something that's in your wheelhouse and you don't really want it anyway. I don't want to do that. And rent to own is a great exit from an agreement for sale property. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that because it's a really potent combination. So a rent to own as an exit from an agreement for sale, you're getting an initial option payment, which is going to go towards the buyer's, the rent to own tenant, I should say, future down payment. So you're getting that amount, and it's usually bigger than what you've put down on the property for the agreement for sale purchase. When you've got a property that is that negative cash flow kind of property, rent to own can be a great option because you usually also get monthly installments towards option payment. So that basically funds the deficit of that negative cash flow. And you can time, or try to time, the sale to the tenant to match the agreement for sale term to make sure that you are not in the end paying fees to break that mortgage. So here's an example. So let's say we buy a property worth $300,000, but we only paid $270, because remember, we deducted the equivalent of realtor's fees and mortgage prepayment penalties and all of that. So we got the property for $270. We only put $5,000 down, and we're working with the existing mortgage of $255,000. So there's not much money left in the property, and we're going to pay that at a later date. So we're only putting $5,000 now and the rest later. We're going to sell it in 2 years for $334,000. Now that's only $34,000 over today's true market value. But because we only paid $270, the profit on sale is actually $64,000 in only 2 years. We've also paid the mortgage down by $15,000 and makes our gross profit $79,000 on a $5,000 investment. It's pretty awesome. So because it's only $5,000 down, the return on investment is actually 80% per year. I don't have enough good things to say about that. Now, if we added a rent to own exit, keep in mind that that tenant's upfront payment for the option payment is usually at least $10,000, and our down payment was only $5,000. So we are net zero into this property, which means that our ROI would be infinite. And, you know, as Buzz Lightyear would say, to infinity and beyond. So agreement for sale in a nutshell, you can have zero net capital invested. You've got no mortgage qualification. You can buy as many properties as you want, and it's potentially infinite ROI. And of course, you can help a distressed seller get out of a bind and create that true win-win. So that's the bulk of what I have for you. I will answer questions as soon as I share these connections with you. I do have a Creative Real Estate Investors Mastermind group. It's not very active at this point, but it's there. My page is QD HomeQuest, which you could be on right now watching this video. And that is a great way to see what's going on and see the live broadcasts and everything else. And make sure to like and follow the page. Twitter and Instagram, not very active on. I'm working on it. I'll get there. And YouTube, I do have some excellent videos on YouTube if you want to check that out. This one, though, is the real important one. This is my webinar coming up, free webinar on May 11th, that goes into great detail on exactly how to do an agreement for sale purchase. So that is one that you should sign up for, and you can sign up. Oh, well, I was going to put the link in here. I'll put it up on the Facebook page, and I'll also send it out to anyone who's on my email list, so you can make sure you get that, because yeah, that will describe in detail exactly how to do this free webinar on May 11th. You can also sign up at the banner of the QD HomeQuest page. If you click up the sign up button on the banner, that will take you to that. And now let me see, I'm going to stop screen sharing. And let me see if I can find Facebook, if we've got any comments. You know what, I'm not good with Zoom and Facebook. So does anyone have any comments who's on Zoom right now? Excellent. Okay. And all right. Oh my goodness, I am having tech issues today. It's actually not tech issues, it's brain issues. Okay, here we go. We have a question. Can you please illustrate a bit more about the $5,000 down payment for the $255,000 property? I'm not sure what you would like me to answer. So the property, we agreed to pay $270,000 on it, and they owe $255,000. So they only have $15,000 in equity in the property. So that's the most, that's all they're going to get. So what we did was agree that we would put $5,000 down now, and the other $10,000 they would get when we eventually cashed them out, when we've completed the whole transaction, cashed out their financing, cashed out their equity, and transfer of title. So that's, I think that probably answers the question. And another question, could you please mention what could be on the downside of agreement for sale? That is an excellent question. Okay, so there are several things that could happen for downside. One of them would be that the market does fall a little bit, and now you can't sell it for what you want to sell it for. It's not going to refinance unless you put a big down payment into it. So you're kind of stuck there. But one key is to have a clause in your agreement that says that you do have the right to renew, as long as, you know, you're holding up your end of the deal and making all the payments and everything. So that way you can renew the underlying mortgage and renew the agreement and give it another year or two, or whatever you agree on with the initial seller as to the timeline, and then you can sell it or refinance it at a later date. So that is one thing. And because we have that agreement term that we're allowed to renew in our contracts, then that has not caused an issue for us. One issue that has been caused, that we've experienced, is when sellers don't fully understand what's going on, even though everything's been put in writing, we've confirmed everything by email. And occasionally you still have people that are they're just not in the right mindset to realize what's going on. So the key is to just be careful that everything is spelled out very clearly in your contracts. And in fact, for our purchase and sale contract, we have some of the key terms from the agreement for sale agreement. We highlight them in the purchase and sale contract so that they know them all up front, rather than being and can ask about them now, because it's just a summary of the term. They can ask about them before they sign to sell their property, and there's no surprises when they get when they're signing at the lawyer and get the agreement for sale document. I know personally, I've been surprised by banks with terms that were not in the initial commitment that we signed. Then we go to sign the lawyer at the lawyer's office and have the big document, and it was so different. And what do? You've already committed to buy this property. We were so perturbed. So yeah, we want to be completely transparent, make sure that everything is really well explained. What else? We have had a case where the seller did not want to renew. The thing is, it is a right in the contract. So they weren't happy about it, but they still did it. They had no choice. So that's unfortunate. But one way around that is to incentivize it. You can agree that, okay, I know you don't want to renew, but how about we pay you a bit more of your equity now for that privilege of renewing, or that right to renew. So there are ways that you can smooth it over. All right, is an option to purchase and or LLC. So this isn't a lease with an option to purchase. This is the sale of a property. How it works is you're starting the sale today, and we have now beneficial ownership, but the legal ownership of title or deed doesn't transfer until we complete the transaction a year or 2 or 3 or 4 down the line. So then at that point, the transaction completes and everything's cashed out, the underlying mortgage is paid, any remaining seller's equity is paid, and title then transfers. So some people think of it as a sale with a super long closing, but it is a sale, not an option to purchase. Okay. Any other questions? Now let me see. I don't see any questions on Facebook, but I might be in the wrong place. But if you do have questions, you can always send them to me later or ask them in the comments, and I'll make sure I get to them later. And any other questions from my Zoom friends here? All right. Okay. Well, thank you for watching. And oh wait, one more question. Is it a possibility to improve the rate of the seller mortgage? No, you're signing in to work with whatever the underlying mortgage is. So the only way to get a better rate would be to get a different mortgage. So that would be you refinancing. So, and that's why if the person has a high interest mortgage, it's not usually a good candidate. That being said, though, we did one where we bought on agreement for sale, but it was always going to be a fix and flip because she had the high interest mortgage as a second on her house. So she had, and that one wasn't very big. So the payments weren't terrible, but it's definitely not something that we would have wanted to maintain long term. So that one we got into as a fix and flip. And still it was, even though there was that high interest second, we still saved loads of money by working with the low interest first mortgage, the small high interest second mortgage, and for the short term, I think we only owned it for 6 months. So the flip for a couple months, and then and there were delays. So it should have only been 2 months, but you know how things go. So that one was a great flip project because we didn't have to apply for that bridge financing. We weren't paying because even application fees on bridge financing or renovation financing, flip financing, the application fees can be huge. So this is a tremendous way to get into a fix and flip. And that's the only way that a high interest mortgage is really going to work. But the other thing is, if it's higher than you would like, higher than today's rates, you have to remember that you're getting in with no mortgage qualification and little to no money down. So even though you've got higher expenses, the numbers may still work when you look at the return on investment. So if you're putting $5,000 down on a property and your interest payments are a little higher than you'd like, you're still making $60,000 in profit on a $5,000 investment. So if it's kind of high interest, it's still workable usually. Okay. And rent to own is a very interesting way to exit an agreement for sale. We can do it even though the property is not legally ours. Yes, you can. You do have, we always get power of attorney. That's fantastic. I would love power of attorney. We get power of attorney over the property so that we have the right to work with the mortgage and utilities and the city development permits if we need to do renovation. So we get power of attorney over the property, and of course we register our interest in the property on title as a caveat. And yes, we can do a rent to own. And when you think about it, there are a lot of people, if they're a management, people who have rentals where the titled owner isn't managing the property, they hire a manager, a professional manager to manage that property. So there are a lot of times where the tenant or tenant buyer in this case, is not dealing directly with the owner on title. So it's our company that operates the rent to own and works that out. And it works great. All right. Any last minute questions? Because our time is up here, but absolutely make sure you sign up for that webinar on May 11th. I'll put the link down in the chat underneath, or the comments underneath, and I will send it to anyone on my email list. So you'll get the link for the replay for this, as well as the link to sign up for the webinar. And if you're watching on Facebook, click the sign up button on the banner of the page, and you'll get to that link to sign up for that free webinar that is going to give huge info on how exactly to do an agreement for sale. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.